Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is a part 2 of the GAIT video in which I'm going to talk about the kinetics of the GAIT cycle. So kinetics is mainly about the degrees and the muscles involved in the GAIT cycle. So let's get into it. So the kinetics I have written in the same form as the table, so the order is the same. So that is heel strike to foot flat to mid stance to heel off to toe off, acceleration to mid swing, and mid swing to deceleration, and also the ankle, knee and hip order remains the same. Now the degrees. So first we'll start with heel strike to foot flat. So in this, the ankles in 15 degree of plantar flexion, the knee is also in 15 degree of flexion, and hip is in 30 degree of flexion. Okay, so that is why we have it in the table: plantar flexion, flexion and flexion. So that is how you can correlate with the kinetics in the same table itself. So the next part is foot flat to mid stance. In this, now the ankle goes from 15 degree of plantar flexion to 10 degree of dorsiflexion. The knee will go from 15 degree of flexion to 5 degree of flexion, which is almost extension. So in the table we have written it as extension. Now in the hip, it goes from 30 degree of flexion to 3 degree of flexion, which is also almost extension. So hence in the table we have written it as extension. Now the third part is mid stance to heel off. In that, the ankle now goes from 10 degree of dorsiflexion to 15 degree of dorsiflexion. The knee will go from 5 degree of flexion to 0 degree, which is the complete extension, and the hip will go from 5 degree of flexion to hyperextension. Please note this, that the hyperextension is also a very important phase in the GAIT cycle, so you have to mention hyperextension while you're writing the answer. The next part is heel off to toe off, in which the ankle will now go from 15 degree dorsiflexion to 20 degree of plantar flexion. The knee will go from 0 degree flexion to 40 degree flexion, and hip will now go from hip hyperextension to flexion. The next phase is acceleration to mid swing, in which the ankle will now go from 20 degree of plantar flexion to neutral. The knee now increases in flexion, so that is from 40 degree it goes to 60 degree of flexion, and the hip will go to 20 to 30 degree of flexion. In the last phase, mid swing to deceleration, the ankle will now remain in neutral. The knee will again decrease in the flexion, that is from 60 degree it will go to 30 degree of flexion, and the hip will remain the same, that is 20 to 30 degree of flexion. So that is how the degrees of the GAIT cycle kinetics is. Now let's go to the muscles. The muscles, you can see the star marks I have made in the table. So that is where you have to change the muscles, otherwise there are standard muscles for the remaining the components of the table. So suppose now the first is ankle eccentric concentration, heel strike to foot flat, in which plantar flexion is happening. So naturally the muscles we used will be dorsiflexors. So that is how you can write that the dorsiflexors work eccentrically to control the amount of plantar flexion happening in the ankle joint. Now let's go to the next component, that is foot flat to mid stance. Also now this is dorsiflexors. So actually the plantar flexors will work. So that is the standard muscle, that is plantar flexors and gastrosoleus you have to use in your answer. Now the star mark here means you have to use different muscles. So that is peroneus longus, peroneus brevis and gastrosoleus, which was already there. That is how you can remember the muscles also. Now let's come to the knee. The standard muscle in the knee is quadriceps, that is either concentric or eccentric depending on the table. Now the star mark here, that means in the star mark you have to use muscles that are biceps femoris, gracilis and sartorius. Okay, so then your answer will become the knee is in concentric contraction with the help of the muscles such as biceps femoris, gracilis and sartorius. Okay, so now let's go to the hip. Hip standard is no, that means IT band is taught. The star mark here means the first star mark and the last star mark are written H. That means you have to use hamstrings in both the star marks. So that means the first star mark you have to use hamstrings, gluteus maximus and erector spinae, and the second star mark, as you can see here, that is when you have to use iliopsoas, rectus femoris, gracilis and sartorius. And the third star mark which you can see is, as I've already told you, hamstrings. So that is also a way you can remember the muscles of the hip kinetics. Now last but not the least, the diagram of the gait cycle, as you can see here. So 60% of the gait cycle is known as the stance phase, when some part of the foot is in contact with the ground, and the rest 40% of the gait cycle is known as the swing phase, when the leg is up from the ground. So that is the table. This is the reference from Cynthia Norkins, and the whole gait is also referred from there only. So you all can refer to that book. And if you all have any doubts, you all can DM me on my Instagram account. Thank you for watching. Hope it helps.